All right, all right, all right. We are back. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. This is Preeminent Radio. You are now listening to the Micah Dobbins Show, and we appreciate you guys for checking us out tonight. You can also visit us on our social media. You can check us out both Instagram, on Facebook, Twitter. I'm about to say MySpace, but we're not on MySpace. Hey, shout out to those who were friends with Tom. Tom held us down back in the day. Like, Tom was like the first friend of everybody on MySpace. When you first joined, Tom was like the little guy with the desk. Frank looking like, who? They got to sit at the desk. Let me tell y'all something. I'm going to give my age away a little bit. I remember like Black Planet. They both looking like, what? Black Planet was like, Friendster was like the first social media. Then after that, you had Black Planet. Then after Black Planet, some years later, MySpace came. Then after MySpace came to Facebook. Now we got...
I honestly thought MySpace was the first one. I didn't... Wow.
Yeah, before MySpace, they had this thing called Black Planet. And you could do a profile and you could meet people. It was very, very different. You couldn't do videos on there, though. Because you didn't have like a YouTube and none of that yet. But you had like a little robotic chat. Like messages. True story. This is way off. I remember... Anyway, I'm going to leave that alone. I'm about to tell a story about that. Give my age away a little bit. All right, guys. Yes. So back in the day, yeah, they had a thing called Black Planet. That was like the social media. And then Friendster. Friendster came. I think Friendster came either after Black Planet or before. And then after Friendster, then you had Facebook. By the time Facebook came, it became like MySpace got crushed. My feelings was a little hurt, to be honest. I was one of those people that held on to MySpace to the bitter end. I was like, yo, I'm not letting my MySpace go. I just got the ability to upload songs on this thing. And everybody left it for Facebook. And for those who don't know, Facebook, originally you had to be in college, like to be a part of Facebook. If you didn't have like a college that you were part of, you couldn't even sign up at first. You know, it was like a college thing because Mark Zuckerberg had created it based off of the Facebook in Harvard or whatever. So at any rate, when the college kids had their fun with Facebook and joined it, then they let the rest of us normal peons join. I mean, we jumped on. And I go to school, but you know, anyway, I ended up going to school after the fact. But I should have went before, so I could have been on Facebook from the jump. And to tell you how much of a fossil I was, it took me forever to swing over from that to like Twitter to Instagram. Now I took to YouTube immediately. YouTube was like awesome when I first saw it. I was like, hold up, I can watch these videos. And I think I still remember some of the first YouTube videos I saw. I think the one of them that was popular was a little kid, the Charlie bit my finger, the little British, the little kid, Charlie, he bit my finger. And everybody used to crack up laughing. You had a lot of people had a lot of weird cat videos on YouTube in the beginning, like cat silly videos. But I remember it was this group called the EMC Monkeys. That was the name of their clique. They were like this little parkour crew. They used to run up walls and backflip and jump off stuff. You know, when I was a kid on the army bases, we ride skateboards and do all that crazy stuff. So I'm watching these guys jump off of buildings and run through shopping malls, flipping off the top of stuff. I'll show you a video at the end of the show. It was crazy. Yeah, but shout out though to YouTube and all of them people. By the way, speaking of YouTube, please y'all go subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have a ministry channel that has a good following. I appreciate those there. But I need some of you guys also to visit the Micah Dobbins Show channel and start subscribing there because I'm going to start uploading content. I've already done some. So make sure you guys are checking that channel out as well. And we're going to get back to both of those channels, actually. As soon as my wife returns, we're going to talk about that some more. All right. So we are now at another segment. Sorry, guys. I hold your hostage that long. We are now at a segment called A Time in History. And for those who don't know, I like studying history. I feel like it's hard sometimes to see where you're going if you don't look back to where you've been. And history is very relative and important in our society today because, you know, history repeats itself. You can learn a lot. And last week, I think we covered the Battle of Bamber Bridge during the World War II era. We talked about Black Wall Street, I think the week before. So this week, we want to talk to you guys about the Green Book because we're kind of keeping that kind of like a central theme today. And if you relate to the show, you missed the beginning, you can always go back and hear the clip from the documentary from the Smithsonian. But I just want to share a few more points about the Green Book. As we mentioned earlier about the automobile travel, it exploded in the United States during the mid-20th century as more and more Americans were able to afford cars and had disposable income and leisure time, including paid vacations, that allowed them to explore the country. And I want to point out, one of the big companies during this time period that exploded was Ford. And if you get a chance to research Ford was very instrumental in hiring a lot of African American people. They began to kind of give them some very good paying jobs, at Ford, and they worked long hours because I worked at Ford Motor Company. Shout out to Ford. That was another job. Shameless plug. I told you I worked over 30 jobs. Y'all think I'm kidding. I'm serious. I worked at Ford Motor Company. I ended up getting let go because Ford cut back and they moved the plant. They shut down the one that was in Hateville over there. Now the Porsche plant. I worked at that Ford, man. That was like great. Like they paid, I think like 19 something an hour plus $2-3 for cost of living. You'd be at 20 something an hour. There were people who quit their jobs to work at Ford. Cause I definitely was like, I'm leaving. Like anything I'm working for 20 something an hour, I'm out. But I remember it was one guy, he had been working his job for years. His name was Scott. And he's like, man, I applied when I was in high school. And I never got on to, we were like in our 20s, I was older. He said, man, they just got me in. And I was like, really? He said, yeah, I applied. How'd you get in? Because everybody gets in Ford some way. So shout out to my cousin. I got to give him his props. Derek Dobbins. Shout out to Derek. Derek looked out for a young newlywed, Micah Dobbins, that needed a good paying job to take care of the wife and the bills. So Derek hooked me up. He knew the union rep at Ford. And dude was up for election. And he was like, hey, what would it take for you to talk to the guys about voting for me? He said, tell you what, I got a cousin I'm trying to get hired. He said, give me his name. I'll find him in the list. He got me on at Ford. But yeah, shout out, man. Ford give you an A plan. You can get a car at a discount. I don't know why I'm giving them so much props tonight. They're getting free advertisement from me. We need to call Ford for sponsorships. But anyway, Ford Motor Company actually hired a lot of African-American people during this time period. And they looked out to where they were able to buy more and more cars. Cars became more prevalent in the American society, to the point where the African-American people now having this new money and having cars and wanting to travel, they could travel more. And not just them, but all races were traveling. It was just particularly dangerous for them during these time periods. So with the proliferation of tourist homes, roadside motels, and restaurants and tourist attractions, it offered convenience that made it possible for car travel to be a joyful, spontaneous adventure for most Americans. But that was seldom the experience for the African-American travelers during the time of the Jim Crow era. Because segregation was pervasive, and not just in the South, but throughout the country, black travelers not only were meeting with the inconvenience and humiliation of being turned away from businesses, but also had to be ever mindful of the threat of racist violence, including lynching. The landscape was dotted with what was called the sundown towns, where the presence of people of color was banned after nightfall. To address the uncertainty of attaining lodging, meals, fuel, African Americans, car travelers brought with them blankets, pillows, extra foods, drink, even gasoline, as well as portable toilets. The difficulty and embarrassment and fear that accompanied car travel for black people became especially apparent to Green after he married a woman from Richmond, Virginia, to which the couple traveled from their home in Harlem. In 1936, he made an attempt to address the problem by producing the Negro Motorist Green Book, a 15-page guide that listed travel-related businesses in metropolitan New York City that welcomed African-American customers. To compile the listing, Green, at age 44, drew on his first-hand experience as well as recommendations from fellow postal workers. Green lived in Harlem but delivered mail to New Jersey. He found a model for his publication in the Guides for Jewish Travelers that appeared in the Jewish newspaper. And the demand was so great that by the publication of the second edition in 1937, Green shifted his focus to a national scope. And to do so, he had the involvement of the National Association of Letter Carriers. He reached out to postal workers across the country to tell them what hoods was all good for you to travel through. And this is how he was able to write this book. And it became a great phenomenon and publication, as we shared with you earlier. Now, the Green Book, I want to point this out. It was not the only publication of its kind. So that wasn't the first. It wasn't the only one. It was the biggest and most successful, but it wasn't the only one. It was preceded by Hackley and Harrison's Hotel and Apartment Guide for Colored Travelers in 1930, 1931. The Travel Guide in 1947 and 1963, and the Grayson's Guide, the Go Guide to Pleasant Motoring in 1953 to 1959. All of these are contemporaries of the Green Book, but neither was published, or none of them were published as long, nor reached as big of an audience as the Green Book, which was dubbed the Bible of Black Travel. By 1962, there were more than 2 million copies of it in circulation. So 1962 wasn't that long ago. So somebody got one of them 2 million copies for me. If y'all got it, shameless plug, I'm trying to buy one. Go ahead and get with me. Yeah, I'd be more than happy to get one. But at any rate, yeah, the book was a very popular book. It's a very special book. And I hope you guys will take your time to go research that in history and learn more. This is going to conclude our segment, A Time in History. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that as we spoke more about the Green Book and its founder. And this is the Micah Dobbins Show with Preeminent Radio. Make sure you guys stay tuned in. We have our last 2 segments of the evening before we prepare to close out tonight, and you don't want to miss it, so make sure you tune in. This is Micah Dobbins, the Micah Dobbins Show with Preeminent Radio.